I feel shame because I'm not good enough and I'm not measuring up to society's eyes of what a good boy or a good girl should be. Now you have this person that doesn't even know who they are because they've been wearing a mask for so long.
My comfort zone, the things I knew, the things that worked, the things about me that I could count on no longer stand anymore. We're doing well for sure. When you have a big life and you ask for a big life, it comes with big challenges.
Yeah. The best gift we could give anybody in the world is to
All right, guys, what's good? Welcome back to another episode. And today, this is the very, very first ever dual interview we've ever done. And I'm super excited to have two of my favorite people in the world on here for the first one as well. So let's get into it. Today's guests are two speakers, authors, and badass coaches and next level game changers that are paving the way for young people all across the globe to help them tap into their higher purpose and live an incredible life. One of the guests is a returning guest, and this time he's bringing his partner in crime. Together, they've written and published three books and spoken all around the world, helping people unlock their true gifts. So please help me and welcome the two that went from one being a surf instructor and the other selling candy at 8 years old to now multiple seven-figure business owners and creators of the Bridge Method, my friends, Mr. Preston Smiles and Mrs. Alexi Panos.
Let's go.
I'm fired up, man. Man and woman.
Yeah. Yes.
And happy International Women's Day for yesterday as well.
Yes.
By the way.
It's very exciting things. Lots of things happening for women.
Yeah, it's an amazing time to be alive. So,
It is.
guys, I never write down questions for interviews, but I wrote questions for you guys. So I'm super excited. So first one, why are you guys here down under? Talk to us. What are you doing here?
We are returning back after a long hiatus because of COVID, but P and I used to come out here year after year, twice a year to serve and to lead workshops and essentially support people in freeing themselves from the inside out. You know, we're sold this idea that freedom exists outside of ourselves. When we make enough money, we'll be free. When we have the lifestyle, we'll be free. And while it creates some levels of freedom for sure, the ultimate freedom is freedom to be yourself and to live in your truth and to be aligned in that. And the work we've done and put together over the past 10 years is all about that. We do somatic work, we work in the body, we work on opening ourselves up and moving through all those blocks. And that's why we're here, to serve the people of Australia and, give them a taste of that freedom.
I love it. So, and you do that through the Bridge Method.
Yeah, so the Bridge Method is what we teach in the Bridge Experience, which is our level 1 workshop, and Extreme Leadership, which is our level 2, which you've done both.
I have done both. I was actually thinking about this yesterday, and I think I've told you, the first ever personal development event I ever did was that most gnarly extreme one with you two and Scott Cody?
Oh,
in LA.
Yeah.
Like, so... Do you remember that one?
Samurai Games.
Right.
I forgot you did that.
I just came back a boys trip in Vegas. Like, this is how, wild my life was still. I would have been 21, 22. I'm 29 now, so we're talking, I don't know. It's 8 years, something.
Wow.
But I did that, I think, because I think I saw one of your YouTube videos one day, and I was like, oh, I like this guy. And then I was in Vegas. I was like, oh, this guy likes doing an event. I'm going to go. I went with Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
First ever event, and guys, this is like that was a pretty extreme event, and I'm there, I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like so reactive and like angry still, and I'm like,
Yes.
Adam Rowe was in that one,
Yes.
and I'm like, what the fuck's all this shit? And I get to the end of it, and I think I had like a 1 or 2 weeks after, and I thought about it, I was like, I actually learned a lot at that thing.
Yeah.
But that was my first ever event.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that you even call them events, because those aren't events.
What do you
Events
call
are
them?
when people go and they sit in a chair and they listen and write notes. That's a workshop. That's a heart surgery. That is a destroying of the ego. That's what we're into. So we don't do events. We do ceremonies.
Yeah.
We invite people to the truth of their being. and to destroy the parts of them that no longer serve them. So what we're doing in Australia, we're having fun. We came back home because Australia feels like a second home. And we are here to say yes to our yes, which is the invitation for everybody. The best gift we could give anybody in the world is to honor the truth of our being, honor the calling, honor the part of us that is being beckoned to something bigger and greater and different than what is currently occurring. And not because what is currently occurring is bad or wrong, but because it no longer serves where we're going.
Yeah, I love it. So, okay, let's dive in. So you guys are, with the bridge and everything you guys are doing, okay, one thing you mentioned was helping people really sort of unpack the things that may be blocking them. So in your experience, what has been the biggest thing that majority of people get stuck with or get blocked by that may hold them back from really accomplishing their dream life?
So this is like a really nerdy answer, but it's the truth. People's nervous systems.
Interesting.
Yeah. So all the work we do, we're essentially repatterning and reprogramming the nervous system because at some point in childhood, something happened that your body felt was too scary. Your body didn't feel safe. So when that thing happens, the body says, okay, we're going to have a nervous system reaction to it to stay safe. So we're going to shut down, we're going to fight, we're going to flight, we're going to freeze, we're going to appease, we're going to do all these things to keep ourselves safe. And so that pattern in our nervous system repeats time after time after time after time. And what happens is, yes, there's mindset attached to that, but truthfully, the body speaks before the mind can even think. So if we're just working the mindset, we're not working the source of the problem. The source of the problem is your body's closure to life. And so we work on opening the body to life itself in the face of fear. That's what courage is.
What do you think controls which? I was actually thinking about this the other day. Does the nervous system control the way you think in your mindset, or does your mindset control your nervous system?
I think it's a delicate dance because they're not separate. I believe that the nervous system and the trauma that we've experienced in our lifetimes is dictating what lens we see life through. And it's, a prime example of this is so many people go to rah-rah seminars and things like that, and they fix their mindset on being positive. But as she said, the body remembers what the mind forgets. And so if the body isn't given an opportunity to complete some of the shame and some of the trauma, some of the things that occurred in someone's lifetime, whether they be blunt traumas like accidents or rape or physical abuse, or more complex traumas and nuanced traumas like being called a faggot or being bullied or having a sister or brother with special needs and not being loved, or there's a million different ways that we get traumatized, and that trauma gets stuck in the body, and it informs the nervous system. And no matter how many affirmations or positive things we can say, if the body has not processed it, there will be friction.
Yeah, we always like to think of that person who says all the right things, but your animal body's like, no, you're fucking lying, right? Like you've ever met that person where you're like, okay, you say all the right things and I should believe you, but I'm just a no to you and I don't know why. Yep. It's because our animal bodies are so wise and our animal bodies communicate with each other. So if my animal body's got a lot of heaviness and a lot of stuck trauma and fear and stories around what's safe and what's not safe, and you happen to represent something that's a seed of one of those traumas, I could be talking to you and my mind's like, oh, this is a perfectly safe dude. Nothing scary about him, right? We're having a conversation, but if my body's like, oh my God, he looks like that guy. Remember that guy in 8th grade who said that thing to you? Oh my God, okay. And so my energy's here, but my body's energy is closing. And so while you feel my eyes, you feel I'm saying all the right things, and I've got the right mindset and all the things, I'm saying all the positive things, but my body is doing this. Your body's feeling that.
So is that for lack of better words, is that a me problem or a you problem? Like if someone's giving off their own past shit and they're not congruent with what they're saying, is that what you're saying? Like if they're not congruent with the things they say and who they actually are, and we detect that, we're like, this person's not safe, is that our nervous system or mind saying, I'm not safe, or is it our intellectual senses picking up that
usually
their
us.
incongruency?
It's usually you smelt it, you dealt it. we can overlay things on other people, right? For instance, I am Afro amazing. I happen to come in this dark, sexy chocolate skin suit, and there are people who see me and instantly think that I'm a killer and a drug dealer and a rapist and all these other things, right? Is that me or is that them? Most of the time, it's them. Yeah, and it's our brains, our mind is a very complex organism, and it's constantly deleting, distorting, and generalizing. And so the name of the game is to understand that your mind is not like oftentimes telling the truth, that it's in reaction, and that it's going to project onto people to stay safe. It's easier to place blame than it is to take responsibility. And so you said, is it a them problem or a me problem? It's not a problem at all. It just is. And the game is to recognize, right? Because we can't intervene in a world we can't see. I can't do anything about what's not serving me if I don't know what's not serving me. Right? The moment I know that, then I can make a new decision about that and start to recognize, right? Prime example, when I had Smile Surf School and I was teaching surf lessons, I was coaching. I just couldn't get any clients, right? I was in self-development. I knew all the right positive affirmations, but my body hadn't processed not just the trauma that occurred to me, but my dad's and his dad's and his dad's. And so I was living out a story, an ancestral story from my parents. And so I had to go in and do the work and continue to do the work to free up the space where I can have an identity that says success is probable here.
So this takes up space in the nervous system, doesn't
Yes.
it? Your past trauma stuff. So, right, this makes a lot of sense. This makes a lot of sense because when you're saying like the ancestral stuff and how long ago was it? Maybe like 2 years ago, two and a bit years ago, I did heaps of that stuff as well. And like I in this realm, in this, we're like, how does it make sense for us to carry shit from our parents? It doesn't make sense, kinda. And then when you really understand energy, it makes all the sense in the world. And then I was doing this work and I remember dropping back into this strange place, looking over my mum. And I was like, I literally was holding guilt of not being there for my mom when she was a kid. And I was like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. But I'm like, but the fact that it's alive and it was guilt and anger, I was like, and I did this thing, released, and I was like, and I didn't tell anybody about it, like outside the circle did it, right? Because I'm like, how do you explain this shit to someone? like, what do you say?
Like, so I did this weird thing this weekend. Don't judge me.
I released drama from my mom's
from
childhood.
From before I was born, but it's something I've been holding on to.
Yeah.
No, it's hard to explain.
Yeah, but the results that have happened in my life since, it seems quite easy, flawless. But before it was like this grind, this hustle, and things I do a lot less, I make a lot more now.
Yeah, there's more ease.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, so when there's more space in the body, you're not trying to be in this hypervigilant state of I have to keep producing. So you're not producing from fear and force. You're producing from ease and like, oh, I get to do this. What do I want to create? Yeah.
And
feels different.
Here's what's interesting, right? It's in the sort of like first stage self-development world, which is not wrong or bad. We think that it's about mindset only because we think that the intelligence comes from the mind. The deeper you go into this work, the more you recognize that there are 3 centers of intelligence: the mind, the heart, and the gut, right? Now, most of us just spend all of our time trying to figure things out from the mind, the logical mind, but that's going to have a limited purview, right? The moment, and you did this, the moment we start working with the heart and the gut and the body's intelligence, in a whole nother arena opens up, and intellect can get us to the door, right? It can get us to the house. But instinct is the thing that opens all the windows, all the doors, and all the opportunities. Instinct is the animal, right? Most of us try to intellectually beat things, but it will never truly be sustainable until the animal is lined up with it.
Yeah, the animal's got to come online fully for us to fully access all of our power. Otherwise, it's false power. It's that idea of like a pretense of like, look how smart I am, look how much money I have, look how much success or recognition or, influence I have, but we can always fucking feel it, right? And you either feel someone and you're like, yes, or you feel someone and you're like, ooh, I don't know.
So how do you know when it's done? Even though we all know it's never gonna be done.
It's never done.
It's never gonna be done. But for the sake of like, I'll use music as an example, right? Like, 21 years old, my first ever personal development. Like before that, it was stuff with like David Wood, and you guys know David, right? So like stuff like that. And, for the past 8-9 years, I'd like to think I've done a shitload of stuff and create like badass life for myself too. Yeah. And what's funny for me now, honest to God, is now I'm running my own personal development events. I'm doing it for about a year and a half. And the other day I told all my team, I'm like, this was so funny. I'm like, this will hands down go down as the worst event I've ever had in my life. It was the worst event. And the team were all like, how you handled that? I had like 2 hecklers in the audience. It wasn't a paid event. It was like a lead-in event, right? And it was real bad. And I was just like, huh. And then I said to them, they're like, you handle this really, really well. I said, honestly, I get more fucking growth up here than what I do sitting in them fucking seats.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm still growing. And what's so funny is I'll finish an event. I've still got all my own bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wish I could just sit in my own seat one day again. So for me, it kind of feels like the more you guys do. So I guess my question is this. You guys are facilitators and coaches and you do all this sorts of stuff. At what point do you realize I've still got my own shit to sort of continually work through to break to that next level? And how do you do it? Where do you go when you guys are the ones that facilitate the shit for people?
There's just so much in that question.
There was a lot.
So how do you know when you're done was the first question I heard. And the answer is you're never done, but how do you know that you've made some progress? It's always like, how do you feel? Like when shit hits the fan, how do you handle it? Yeah. Right? Like if you handle it, for me, that's my barometer. It's like, what's my mind chatter? If my mind chatter's slow and like easy and nice, I'm like, oh, I'm doing pretty good. Like the work's working, right? If my mind chatter is really horrible and nasty and vicious, I'm like, okay, get back in the gym. There's some work to do here. So I think the work's never done because the way I like to think of it is like we're these spiritual beings having a very human experience, and the work's not done until I'm fully actualized in my spiritual truth. And like, am I ever going to fucking get there? Probably not. But the closer I can get to that before I die, sweet, right? Yeah. So where we go, we have coaches, we have teams of people we trust. We've got our community of people that are, facilitators and brilliant and masters at what they do. We surround ourselves with giants. We really do. And I think that's the key piece to our growth is giants, not just in the world where people are like, wow, I know that person. That's so cool. You hang out with them. But like people who have been married for 35 years and have been through it, like we're married, we've got kids, people who are parents to 5 kids. We got 4 kids, but 5 kids. Like tell us how you do it, keeping people around us that humble us and show us the way because they've walked that way.
So can we talk about something that would probably relate to, I think, a lot of people, especially listen to this, and people pleasing? So I'm sure you guys will see it time and time again, right? So I was going to ask, where does it come from? But I'm probably going to assume, based on the things you guys have just talked about, random shit happens in our life from when we're born or even our past, and it gets caught up into these things. But can you talk about what do people do about it? Like, how do you become aware that you're people pleasing? Why is it damaging to us? Because I'm sure some people would be like, no, it's nice. I like being a nice person to every single person. And then what do they do about it?
Yeah. So let me just start by saying, and this is going to seem unrelated, but it's extremely related. Porn addiction is at an all-time high. And my opinion is that, and I'm speaking specifically to men right now, my opinion is that a reason why that is at an all-time high is people-pleasing. It is that these little boys, were raised by well-meaning mothers and fathers who wanted to make sure that they were good boys and good citizens. And they tried to unconsciously beat out the wild man and make them presentable. For school, domesticated, right? Good for school and church and everywhere else, Morgan's getting straight A's now, and Jason's playing on the soccer team, and he's so respectable, and all of that stuff created this, at some level, this other identity. Because we cannot, while we're in these bodies, beat our biology. And so what happens is that these well-to-do, really nice people have to search for and reach for things to feel alive again. And so the damage of people-pleasing and repressing the truth, right? So many people are afraid to just say, I'm pissed right now, right? What you just said doesn't work for me, right? That repression and the people-pleasing is literally one of, because underneath all of that is shame. Underneath all of the people-pleasing and the repression is, I feel shame because I'm not good enough, and I'm not measuring up to society's eyes of what a good boy or a good girl should be.
And if they really knew what was underneath all this, happy-go-lucky, smiley, nice girl, nice guy stuff, I would never be accepted. And so we keep ourselves hidden, but the question is always at what cost, right? For some of us, it's the cost of a relationship where we actually feel connected. For some of us, it's the cost of feeling fucking alive and on fire and really connected to life. And so there's always a cost, always a cost.
I love that. It's because I feel like that it hasn't been a huge thing for me, but I think especially as Australia, I don't know if
yes.
Do you guys see it as different, bigger here than America?
Yes.
It's different. Yeah. It's big everywhere, to be clear.
Yeah. It's big everywhere in the Western world.
That's right.
And
that's right.
It is really big in Australia because of the drinking culture and the macho culture.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so there's this...
what about the tall poppy thing?
Yes,
very much.
Yeah, tall poppy, right? When you put all those together, it creates this sort of weak, mundane sort of...
It's very vanilla.
Yeah, it's the Aussie battler, right? As long as you're battling towards something, you're good. Yeah. The moment you're actually in your power, we have to cut you down.
Yeah.
And so, experience that when you're 7, no big deal. 10, okay. 15, damn, this is starting to get locked in my body. Yeah. By the time they're 23, 24, 25, now you have this person that doesn't even know who they are because they've been wearing a mask for so long.
Yeah. So that event I did with you guys, right? I legitimately thought that everyone there was taking the piss out of me, when we did group activities, right? Because they were so fucking supportive. They were so yeah, man, and if I did something wrong or the big thing was feedback, right? It was just this continual encouragement, and I thought they were taking the piss out of me.
Oh wow!
And for the first part, I was triggered because I was like, man, these guys what the fuck's their problem? I don't even fucking do anything. You don't know me enough to have that banter with me. Yes. Then I got to the end of it, I was like, dude, everyone here is actually just legitimately really supportive and encouraging.
Yeah.
And in Australia, it's not. It's just not. I say this all the time. I'm like, this is why a lot of my mentors and coaches are in America.
Yes.
The thinking is bigger. The encouragement is bigger. It's here. It's quite competitive. It's quite, I don't know. They just care more about other people. So I think the culture here of this pleasing thing is huge. But you talked about, at cost of what? And for so long, it was costing me this, I used to live what I thought was an unknown zone, this freeing life, and you don't know freeing life until you genuinely do not give a fuck.
Yes.
in a respectful way.
Yeah.
Right. What are some other things culturally you've seen when we talk about success? Predominantly, what are some things you've seen culturally different the way that happens in the States and the way it happens in Australia in terms of their attitudes?
I think it's Americans are they're willing to play a little bit bigger. They're willing. Definitely. Because in America things are bigger, right? Everything's bigger, everything's brighter, better, louder, and so I think and that's the trap though for Americans because they think they have to be big to be successful, right? So their version of success, their trap, their golden handcuffs is I have to build the big business, has to look exactly like this. I have to be the big personality on the big stage to matter. And then they get trapped in that comparison. Versus here, it's like, oh, well, I just need enough to get to 6 figures so I can have the nice house and have the nice clothes and drive, a nice car and have the freedom lifestyle. It's more lifestyle focused here, which I think there's a benefit to that. But there's a smaller game being played here. So there's pros and cons to both. But yeah, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, you have to go back to convicts. Right.
That's what I always say. I'm like, we're only a few generations off.
Yes.
Convicts.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
And the guilt and shame that would hold.
Yeah.
Right. And the cultural identity of making sure you don't get too big for your britches. And
the worthiness of being big.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of that is baked into the culture. And then you add in the government dominance, right? The government has such... they have more power at some level, right? False power in Australia than they do in the U.S. And because of that, there's
among the citizens.
Yes, there's a lack of pushing, right? Even when you think about taxes in Australia is brutal. They take like half of your stuff straight out. So it wouldn't incentivize someone to go big or go home if you're going to take half anyway, right? So it's baked into almost everything, but I want to go back to something, which is you asked, how does one work through / beat the people pleasing that shows up? And what I want to point to is going back to what we even started this conversation with is bringing awareness to the moments when one is doing it and then making a new micro choice and then celebrating the micro choice, right? Because what we appreciate appreciates. What we focus on expands. What we put our attention on and give life to creates more life. And so the moment one can bring awareness, I just said yes when something in me said no, right? Okay. What do I want to do about this? First of all, good job, you caught it. Second of all, can I renegotiate that? Can I shift it? Can I bring a new action to that same space? Hey, I realize I just said yes to that, but there's a part of me that feels like it's a no. Is it okay if we do X or Y, right? And then whatever the outcome is, I'm celebrating that I had the courage to catch it and do something about it, right? Just like, here in Australia, all the guys have these big thighs, right? Because of football and
that's
on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
AFL and football, right? And so I have smaller thighs, right?
Yeah.
If I wanted bigger thighs, I would need to go to the gym consistently. I would need to do exercises consistently over time. Then at some point, I wouldn't have to work as hard because the muscle mass, the muscle memory would already be built up, right? When it comes to being an authentic being, small reps, small hinges swing big doors. The smallest hinges are swinging that door and all the biggest doors in our lives. And so when I'm taking tiny chips at something, it adds up over time and then it becomes embodied. And once it's embodied, I don't even have to think about it anymore. Now I'm on to the next thing that no longer serves where I'm going.
I just want to add to that too. I think a lot of people don't even know where to look, right? It's like, how do I know? Like I remember for me, when I first heard of the term people pleasing, I was in my early 20s. I'm almost 40 now. But it was like, do I do that? Do I? No, I'm just a nice person. I'm just a really happy person, right? I had all these like excuses for myself and I believe them. I truly believe them. But what helped me to learn how to find it is look for all the areas of stress in your life, because wherever there's stress, there's resistance to what is. And what is truth for you. And truth is different for everybody. But if I'm feeling stress in my relationship and I'm complaining and feeling bitter, there's a lot of resentment, that means there's some truth in there that I haven't been willing to look at or say or give voice to. So that's the place I would look, is wherever you feel stressed out or shut down or resentful or angry or complaining a lot, that's where you're not being authentic, because there's something there that's not working for you and you're unwilling to put voice to it because you're afraid of what people will say.
It's crazy the breakthroughs or the learnings that can come from things like this. One of the biggest ones I got was I'm in a relationship now, with a new woman. You guys wouldn't know, so you remember my last one. Yeah. And so between the bridge of being single, I came back to Australia, and my mindset was, okay, that's it. No more relationships. I mean, single till I'm 32. I've got every guy's dream. Like, you know, I've got these online businesses. I travel the fucking world. Like, all I'm going to do is date so many women, be very honest about it, right? I'm just going to date heaps of women, and I'm going to find someone proper when I'm like 32. And through that journey, like, obviously I got a bit out of my system for a bit. And then I remember this girl, I was talking to this girl, and she wanted to catch up this Friday night, right? And I remember I was like, I couldn't really be fucked. I really don't want to. Like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should though. I was like, I should, like I've got a Friday night is designated date night with a new girl. And I'm like, I should do it, because, you're single now, blah, 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 blah. And I call myself saying that. You should. And I'm like, should for who? For her or me? And then what I actually did, I said no. And I remember she was a gorgeous woman. I was like, I'm actually just going to sit tonight in. For no other reason other than just chill out with myself and watch a movie.
Yes.
And I got addicted to that.
Yes.
Because the feeling I got from saying no was far better than the chase of a new woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sleeping with a new girl, the date, to get her to be like, oh my God, Morgan, you're so amazing. Oh my God, this. Because I knew that's why I was doing it.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, just to have me let go, be like, oh my God, wow. Or come to my penthouse or, and so I knew I was doing that. But then I got this feeling of being like, no. I was like, oh, this is so much better.
Yeah.
So much better.
Yes.
And it's just this, you don't know it. So I love that. What's up, Dream Nation? Have you ever wondered how far ahead your life would have already been if you had got access to this type of content at a younger age? Look, this is why I need your help. I'm trying to build the #1 personal development platform out there to teach you guys the tips, tricks, and attitude of what it takes to live your dream life, and to bring the type of education that we all wish we had in school. This show only grows by word of mouth and new subscribers, so it would mean the world to me if you could smash that subscribe button right now, leave us a 5-star written review, or drop a comment below and share this episode with a friend. I would be forever grateful. All right, now let's get back into this episode.
Most people make decisions because they think they can fail, right? They think that there is a such thing as failure. The moment you actually get that you can't miss, whether you call it Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Allah, Source, Divine Intelligence, whatever you want to call that thing, there is an intelligence. There is an isness that exists that moves beyond all of us. And there's no step you can take, right? You go left, God. That's how I call it. You go right, God. You go up, God. You go down, God. You can't miss. And so there's an empowered feeling once you realize, like, okay, is this a yes for me or is this a no? If it's a yes and you want to go have sex and get all the validation, fantastic, because God. If it's a no and you want to, Netflix and chill with yourself and drink some water and lift some weights and do whatever, fantastic, because God. And for me, and I'm not saying this is true for anybody else, but for me, knowing that there's no place where I will or can go that God isn't, and that I can't miss, and that I'll never be forsaken, and every step that I take in the name of love or not is still divinely guided, then it's just about having fun and enjoying the journey, right?
Yeah, so every single thing is perfect.
Yeah.
And I say to people, because often, and I'm sure you guys see, like, paradoxically, people often come to me and like, I have a fear of success. I say, okay, what else? I also have a fear of failure.
Yeah.
Fucking what? So what do you do?
No wonder why you're not doing anything.
Yeah, yeah, right. But then I always crush it every single time with this. I say, let me ask you a question. Has there ever been an event in your life that at the time you really wish it wasn't happening to you? And they're like, yes. I say, but now do you look back on it and you're so grateful that it happened?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I got so much learning, so much stuff. But you did. So would you say that thing that happened to you was actually really perfect? But at the time, it was really unperfect. And like, yes, I said, so everything that's imperfectly perfect happening exactly how it's meant to be happening right now. And they're like, yeah, right.
Right, man.
Yeah, you got some truth to that, mate.
Yeah, but that's so it, right? Like,
Yeah.
again, so many of us humans, we're just in resistance to what is. And that's where all struggle in life comes from. It's when you resist what's here, and what's here is here, so we might as well be with it and use it as an opportunity.
That's literally how I play my life. I'm like, it's this. I asked the question before, how do you sort of gauge if, and you said it's like, well, when things happen, how do you react or respond to it? And that's my thing. Like, I just have this attitude of like, oh, isn't that so interesting that this would completely fuck up like that? Oh,
yeah,
that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
And I just get curious now instead of like, and that's just a better way, because that's
but even
is okay.
Is a gift.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes the best gift you can give all of humanity is just like, fuck!
Yeah.
Right? Because if we try to intellectualize everything away to positivity,
we miss it too.
We miss the whole thing, right?
Because again, we're in resistance to what is. If you have the feeling, be with the feeling.
There is so much juice in grief.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That oftentimes people don't get till later.
Yeah.
There is so much creativity, so much magic, so much thump, so much. We're going to have a feeling that we'll talk 8-9 years from now, and you'll be like, oh my God, right? Because it's all stages, right? It's stages and phases, and it's all cyclical.
Yeah.
So there'll be a point where I'll circle back right where you are, and then you'll circle like this, and we'll all just be circling each other, learning and growing. Yeah. And grief is one of those emotions and things that so many of us try to avoid because of a fear that will never come out. And so we positive our way back to the top, and we intellectualize our way back to safety because we think that we're going to drown in the grief, and it's actually the portal to so much success. It's the portal to so much success, and not just worldly success, but internal success. There is a feeling tone when you meet somebody who is in their power. Like all of you maybe been around someone where you're like, yo, that's different. Yeah. Right? It's like big dick energy, whether it's a dick or not, right? You're just like, ugh. They are taking this whole space. And oftentimes those are the people who are most well-rounded. They're the ones who've said yes to all of life and not just the aspects that feel good and are positive.
Yeah, I want to speak to grief because a lot of people hear this and they're like, how is grief good, right? Like, here's why. Quite frankly, grief is the closest emotion we have to actual death. Because when we grieve something, we're grieving what was something and is no longer. So it's the closest most of us will get to death without dying. And when we have a death, what happens is at that choice point of like, okay, my comfort zone, the things I knew, the things that worked, the things about me that I could count on no longer stand anymore. We are now in grief because now we don't know who we are. We don't know where we're standing. We don't know where we're going. And therefore our identity that we have perfectly crafted and has worked in this realm has to die. And when that identity dies, what is possible on the other side of that is whatever the fuck you want to be possible. Yes. It's the rebirth. It's the initiation. So grief is so powerful because it's an initiation that we're kind of forced into sometimes, that if we see it with intention and we bring that intentionality to it, we actually can come out of that and rise. It's like the phoenix, right? We rise from the ashes, but with intention, because we say, hey, it all fucking crumbled here. Cool. Now that I get to rebuild the house, what kind of house do I want to build? That's powerful.
Yes. I love it. I want to talk about, because I know you do lots of men's work and stuff. Can we talk about the whole masculine energy, feminine energy, creating success? Let's go down this rabbit hole for a second. But let's start with toxic masculinity. When does doing men's work and tapping into beast mode become toxic?
Yeah, I think that labeling something as toxic masculinity when it doesn't work for you is super dangerous, and it makes sense that there is such a pushback on patriarchal ways of being, right? Our society's been set up specifically, mainly for white males, right? And then everybody else sort of trickles down. And so let's not call that bad or wrong. It's just opportunistic, right? If I'm a white dude who enslaved everybody, I'm like, yo, let's make this work for me, right? Now, the world is changing, and there's a reckoning. And what's happening is there was so much pushback, especially starting with the Me Too movement. There was such a pushback on almost everything that we've, found some level of equilibrium, but then all the other more marginalized communities jumped in and said, Me Too. So then now it's like, well, it's not just LGB, it's TQ. And they're like, yeah, well, it's not just that. I'm a millennial and I'm gender non-binary now, bitch. Right? Now everybody starts putting their hand in. And what's beautiful about that is, yes, we swing the pendulum all the way over here, but almost always we find something that feels good and matches what society truly wants. And there's a dying of the old guard. And a part of that dying and death is learning what gender roles mean now. And so when somebody is too connected to their masculine fire, it can be labeled that. And there is an enormous amount of rape and rape culture and drinking and debauchery and hedonism that is super toxic. But it's not toxic masculinity. It's toxic behavior that occurs between men and women.
Yeah, there's toxic femininity as well, and I think going back to the question, how do you know it's toxic? It all comes down to intention. So it's like you can be fully in your feminine power, but if I'm fully in my feminine power to manipulate that person over there, that's fucking toxic. Yeah. If he's fully in his masculine fire to punish, that's fucking toxic. But if you're fully in your power with love, well, then that's just what it is, right?
So it's like the embodied of all, masculine and feminine. Is that what you're saying?
Meaning what?
Sorry?
Meaning what?
Like so being full in your power, filled with love.
Yeah. Is
it what you're saying is it's good to, so instead of having the pendulum one way or the other, it's about having the actual embodiment of all, or the balance or the integration of both? Is it a yes or no? Or?
It depends, right? Because is anyone ever fully embodied in both? I don't know. I mean, who are we to say, right? Who are we to say? I think the game is constantly cleaning up your own consciousness. What's your intention with this? Are you here with an energy to penetrate, which is the masculine energy, to penetrate something for the sake of love, for the sake of service, for the sake of protection, for the sake of doing better in the world? Or are you here to penetrate for power? A lot of people who are fucking climb, success, more money, that's fucking toxic.
At what point does it become toxic?
At the point of which you do it for the sake of power, recognition. Right. It's toxic for your own consciousness. Not for the world at large, for yourself.
What if it's the driver? What if they're driven? What if the one thing driving somebody is, I'll even say me. I know our driver, it's not the only driver. I was even talking to I was talking to someone the other day, what's the goal this year? I want 1,000 people at events. Income goal. The byproduct of 1,000 people. I'm impact is number one. Yeah. However, I also do know a driver for me is I want to create a big brand and be known and da-da-da-da. Yeah. But it's also because, I do know that it is important for me because significance is a need anyway. But it does work. But I know, the byproduct of it, I know when I create a big brand and this and that, I do a big book deal eventually. On the other side of that, the impact I'll have with that's what I really want. And so I see that as the way to get me to there. So how does someone, because I've had a few people, I was thinking about this the other day, someone came into my event and what I really want is to be famous. And I'm I questioned for a second. I was well, fuck, who am I to say that's right or wrong? Right. So at what point does it, if someone's been striving through for significance or to be liked or for the fame, or is it bad for us?
It's not bad. It's
bad.
Just even speaking to what you just shared, what I would, if I was psychoanalyzing you, I'd say you're trying to find a way to not die. I think that all of us are finding a way. If I could just be Ralph Waldo Emerson or Donald Trump or X, Y, and Z, people will remember me hundreds of years from now, right? Because
legacy, the whole idea of legacy is that, right? I want my name, my person to live on beyond me.
We're trying to escape death
through
through significance. And like I said, intellect will get you to the door, but instinct will open it. And all of this is cyclical. All of it doesn't matter, right? I just got a G-Wagon.
G-Wagon. I saw.
Yeah.
I want one. We'll get one.
Awesome,
Is it good?
right?
They are
The
cool.
seats hug you when you
Yes.
see it, right?
Yes. It's a $200,000 car.
I'm so happy
right?
for you for that. That's amazing.
And it's no different than this glass or this microphone or this shirt. I became a yes to this shirt like I was a yes to the G-Wagon. And at some point, it will be owned by someone else. It'll be trash, or my kids will have it. And yet, it doesn't have my power.
And that's when it becomes toxic.
Yes, the moment the G-Wagon becomes, this is an extension of my dick.
The minute I have
yeah.
it, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Then I'll be powerful. The minute I have 1,000 people at my event, then I'll be powerful. And the question is, like, if it is about impact, which I believe it is, are you going out and making an impact every day? I guarantee you are.
Yes.
Just based on who you are.
And impacting yourself in such a way
Yes.
that it's not win.
Right.
Because an unhappy journey will never produce a happy ending.
Ever.
So the moment I can declare 1,000 people, I can declare, $1 million, I can declare whatever it is. Fantastic. That's awesome because all of life is cyclical. It doesn't matter and it does matter, right? And so as I'm marching towards that 1,000 people, can I have my cup so full? Can I be so moved by life that when I get to the 1,000 people, it's just Tuesday.
And
sharing.
nothing fucking changed,
Yes,
right?
it's just Tuesday.
So
right?
that's it. If
Yeah.
you could be the same person that you are today, that's the same person standing on the stage of 1,000 people and you hit that goal, that's what matters. And it's toxic when we don't allow ourselves to be the embodiment of that which we desire right now. Because we have access to all of that right now. So why the fuck are we giving our power away to a car or an event or a certain number in our bank account?
Because the moment you get there, you're going to feel it for 2 seconds.
Then
and
there's
you're gonna
another.
declare something else.
And it's a fucking dangling carrot, and that shit's toxic because people, it's to me, it's the proof that somebody is not betting on themselves, right? It's like they think I got to bet on this event, I got to bet on this car to make me happy. But you have everything right now.
Yeah.
And the minute you keep putting it out of yourself is the minute you say, I'm not worthy of choosing it and declaring it and being that now for myself because I can.
Cool. I love that. And 100% agree. Because we just ran Dreamfest at the end. So it's my now big event of the year. And we ran for Dreamfest at the end of last year. Had Di Martini come speak at it. Daniel G. Do you know Daniel? He's quite big in the States. He's really popping off. So he spoke at it. And that was like, for me, this big vision for years. And that feeling that you're talking about, I'd be lying if I said I was worried. I wasn't worried at all. But when I was having it, I got there, I was like, we had hundreds of people there. It was amazing. I was like, this is everything I've been visualizing for years.
Yeah.
And I was so just enjoy it. And then after I was like, cool, I want to do this every year. This is just great. So it didn't feel like this. I wasn't expecting nothing other than just be like, well, this is just normal.
Yes.
Of course this is it. Of course we put on a
Yes.
big ass event. I have heaps of people here. And it's amazing because that's just what I do. It's what we're doing.
It's who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm curious to know is how on earth, how many businesses do you guys have?
Yeah.
Fuck, what are
Real
they
estate
now?
portfolio, investment portfolios as well.
Damn.
Yeah. So
you guys have been busy.
and 4 kids, so we manage a lot.
So my question is, how do you guys manage 6 businesses, 4 kids, and each other?
And mental health.
And mental health.
And physical
And
health.
friends
Yeah.
and
And friends.
community.
Yeah.
How do you balance? Because if we're talking about the world of success, you guys are extremely financially successful. The businesses are rocking. You've got the property going. 4 amazing kids, which I'm sure are gonna be freaking models, all right? And like everything's just rocking, all right? And how do you balance this? How do you not only balance the sanity of it, but also growth amongst it all?
Well, I want to just speak to something like not everything is rocking all the time, right? Like we're doing well for sure. But when you have a big life and you ask for a big life, it comes with big challenges.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing I always like to put in the space is I like to humanize success because a lot of people think once they get the success, everything's good. Once I'm married, then everything's good. Once I have the kids, it's all good. It's like, no, bitch, that's when it starts, right? Like that's when it gets hard. That's when you face yourself, right? And because we're constantly leveling up and growing our businesses and growing our relationship and becoming better parents and all the things, we're constantly having to face off with ourselves and all the aspects of ourselves that are still playing small, still hiding out, still not wanting to do X, Y, and Z. And the truth for me, the answer to that question is I go to the gym, the inner gym, and I do the fucking work. And that's what allows me to be present with my kids, be present with him, be present with my stuff when it comes up, be present with the growth and what happens in the growth of that, and working my nervous system in such a way that I can hold more with grace and ease and truth and authenticity. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I'd say that oftentimes people use the word balance, and
it's not really balanced.
there's
There's zero balance in our lives.
yeah. The name of the game is what I spoke to earlier, which is small reps over time builds a body that can hold more weight. Right? There are people right now who can, bench press 300 pounds. I guarantee they didn't start there. And when it comes to life, we've been benching, significant weight over time and pressing up against it and expanding it over time. So what I want anybody to hear is not about the G-Wagon or the 6 businesses or anything that. What I want you to hear is that in 2013, I was making $36,000 a year and living with my mom. And so this didn't happen yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? I've built a somatic body. I've been working on, like she said, I've been going to the inner gym over and over and over again over time. And now it's become easier. Yeah. Right? Now it's so embodied that I can hold more than most. Right? There's all these guys who do like ice baths and they're like, oh, we're tough. We're tough because we do ice baths.
I'm with you. Keep going.
I'm like, okay, you're kind of tough because you do ice baths, but could you wake up 100 times a night with kids?
For 5 years straight?
For 5 years straight, and then run a business, many of them, and have employees and coach people and hold space for, significant amounts of people. That's tough, right? And it's just not as glorified. And so for those of you, anybody listening or watching this podcast who's declaring a big dream, something you want to experience, first of all, congratulations, because the fruit doesn't belong to the tree. It belongs to the ecosystem, right? You've been blessed. You've been called to give something to the world, and it doesn't belong to you. And you're in your process. And you found Morgan, and you found people and spaces to hold you and help you, which is really smart.
Yep.
Right? You want to know how? You want to know how we're as successful as we are? We don't try to do it by ourselves. Nope. The number one tool, whether it's a baby or a business or a relationship, is don't try to do it by yourself. Yep. Trust the village. Proximity is actual power. The moment you find people who have that slice of what you desire, and they can see you, and they can hold you in that space, you exponentially grow, and that's been the work for both of us. We are held as a couple, we are held individually, we are held in a community of people who are really good at certain things. Yeah. We have friends right now who make $30-40 million a year. They have private jets and houses all over the world in real estate. So instead of us just trying to do real estate by ourselves, we're like,
hey, hi, we need help.
You're pretty good at this thing called real estate.
Can you show us some things?
Thanks.
Yeah.
But just to speak to that, because I know a lot of people, and this was me, you have to have two things to have proximity. You have to have a level of humility, which is hard for some people, right? Some people are like, I got this. I'm going to go at it by myself. I don't need anybody. Like, watch me kind of, battler attitude. And then you also need confidence and belief in yourself enough to say, I belong in those circles. Like, that's the other thing that comes up. That was my thing. Like, for the longest time, it was like, I didn't fully believe I belonged in those circles. So I didn't even put my hand out and be like, hey, I want to coach with you. Because I had this story of like, oh, well, would that person actually want to work with me? And I had all this self-doubt around that. And I find it's one of the two things, right? It's either like you're so confident, I don't need anybody, or you have no confidence and you're like, well, I don't belong there. So we have to find that perfect balance of, you know what, I need support. And I believe in myself. I'm betting on myself. And I know I belong in that circle. I just need the support to get there.
Yeah. For me, that that feeling of not feeling like I was fitting in was the evidence for me to know that I was in the right circle. Mm-hmm. Like whenever I feel really confident and comfortable in the circle, I'm like, fuck, time for a new circle.
Yes.
Yeah,
because you don't want to be the big fish.
Yeah. Every single time I'm in a circle, I'm like, holy, they made what last month?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm embarrassed. I don't want to tell them how much I made. Like that for me, I'm like, I'm in the good place now.
Yeah.
But some people do struggle with that. Mm-hmm. And like, my only advice is, fuck, it worked for me. It's like, if you can recognize it, lean into it. It is going to be uncomfortable. All growth is uncomfortable.
It should be.
Yes.
Yeah.
It should be.
It's exciting.
It is. And exactly, that's the mindset, right? Is it uncomfortable or is it exciting? Mm-hmm. Because you recognize like, oh, I'm in this unknown territory. Like something new is going to be birthed here.
Yeah.
Some people are like, oh my God, it's dark here. Let me run back home.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all, that is the mindset game.
I love it. Yep. I'm curious, guys, what does dream out loud mean to you? What comes to mind?
What comes to mind is an understanding that when you make room for your gifts will make room for you. And making room for one's gifts is about expressing. Right? It's about allowing. It's about letting other people hear it and hold it. Right? The moment I'm dreaming out loud, I'm embodied at some level, and I'm expressing what's calling me forward. And the moment we honor that, an entire path will be carved out for us out of no way.
Yeah, it's interesting for me. This is just what's coming through right now is a dream is something that we believe we don't have yet, right? So it's something that we've placed outside of ourselves. So dreaming it out loud means you're actually living. It's what we were talking about, right? Like you're being the embodiment of the thing which you don't believe you have yet, but you're saying out loud, I am that right now. So it's kind of cool because I wouldn't have originally said that, but that's what's landing for me right now.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Are you guys coming back to Australia this year? What's the plan moving forward?
Not 2023, but probably early 2024.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. Preston, I got one last question for you. Well, actually, then we'll have another question to wrap it up. Last time you came on the show, you said to us, you're like, I get up all the time to come on podcasts, and I decided to jump on yours. Mm-hmm. Why did you say yes to coming back on?
Yeah, same thing. You've already shown it, and this is why I want to congratulate everybody listening and watching, because they're clearly an energetic match with you. But just since we've been in this conversation, your level of honesty is a breath of fresh air. Most people try to jockey for why they are worthy or whatever the case may be, and we can smell it from a mile away. And the level of humbleness and how willing you are to be honest about where you are in your journey is so beautiful, right? I'll be 43 this year. You are 29, right? It's clear you're going to continue to be successful because of that thing. Yeah. As somebody who's been in this game way longer than you, I can see it from a mile away. You're going to continue to be successful because of how humble and honest you are. And so for me, whenever there's opportunities and it doesn't impede on my mental health, I'll say yes.
I love that, brother. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yep.
Where can everybody find both of you guys on Instagram? Check out everything you're doing and get along. Guys, I've done The Bridge with you. I've done Extreme Leadership with you. I've done
Samurai Games.
That thing with you. And then I did Bridge again in LA. I facilitated or whatever the fuck I did. Come hung out with you guys. Yeah. When I say like there's so, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but on the Gold Coast here, there's a coach on every corner. There's 5 on every corner. And I don't say it lightly when like you guys are probably the realest and rawest, like in the conversation of the realest and rawest in the game, when there's like the bucket of this, of everyone saying, I can do all this shit. How do you know where to go? And you guys legit. So I think everybody should 100% hit up your stuff. So where can they find you? Where can they go along?
Yep.
Yeah.
At Preston Smiles, at Alexi Panos on Instagram, first and foremost. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. Your podcast is?
Yep, Unleashed with Alexi Panos, so you can listen to me there. Just come find us online on the socials. You'll find access to everything we do. And come play with us.
I love it. Alrighty, to wrap this up, it's the same question as last time. I don't know if you remember. Who wants it first?
Her.
All right.
Give it to me.
If you were to go back to your 18-year-old self and give her 30 seconds of advice, what would it be?
Stop trying. That's it. Just stop trying. My 18-year-old self was just trying to be something, someone. I had this, we were talking about this the other day. I've always known that like there was a bigness in me. There was like this big energy that was calling me forward. And the only place I could place it was like fame and notoriety and success. So I got into the entertainment industry young, but there was so much trying to be something that I wasn't, to try and fit into that big energy. And what I came to know is that bigness is service, and it's my service heart. And just listen to who you are and be that thing.
I love it.
Yeah, for me, I would just tell him that everything's going to be okay. Because I wouldn't want to change anything.
Yeah.
I still would want that 18-year-old to fall and to have breakdowns and go through the traumas and the death of his father and meeting the woman of his dreams and all of the things that occurred. I would just hey, in the end, it's all going to be all right.
Thank you so much for listening. And if you got value from this episode, it goes such a long way. If you can just take 20 seconds of your time, leave me a 5-star rating and written review, then screenshot this episode and share it to your story. And make sure you tag me for that shout out. And until next time, guys, go out there and dream out loud.